Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Build Your Copywriting Business podcast. Hey there, Kate.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Okay, Kate, we're going to get serious. We're going to get down to business.
Dun, dun.
We're going to get legal. Oh, then it would be like,
Da.
Yeah. Dick Wolf, do not sue us. We are going to talk about the unbreakable laws of copywriting. Now, there may be even more than we have on the list, but these are the ones that, oh, no, friend, this absolutely cannot be broken. We're going to dig right in. Where do you want to start?
And if you've broken one, confess to us. We won't tell.
And tune in for the next episode when we do tell.
Haha. I will say too, we were inspired. We just talked with an attorney, part-time copywriter, Leslie, who's a lovely comprehensive copywriting academy student. So we'll link to that episode if you're interested below. Obviously, she's a real lawyer and these are unbreakable laws of copywriting, and we are not real lawyers, attorneys, anything legal related.
No, don't come to us for legal
but
advice.
Nonetheless, yes.
Okay, so first one, the first unbreakable law is ABP. If you know Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, we got some writers. We probably have some people who are into the theater. ABC, always be closing. This is always be pitching. ABP, always be pitching. I know you guys have heard us say it again and again, and yet I still know that sometimes some of you stop pitching. And what happens, Kate, when you stop pitching?
You won't feel it right away, but 2-3 months from that moment that you decide, I don't need to do this anymore, you will feel it, friends. You will feel it because the work will slowly trickle down and dry up. And if it doesn't do completely, obviously, if you have ongoing client work with certain clients, you might just look up and realize, I have a lot of free time today. Oh, wait, I have a lot of free time the next week or 2 or 3, because it gets very easy when you start getting busy to maybe push the pitching aside or feel like you don't have to, or just, I'm too busy to fit it in. And then eventually, though, when you're not busy, all of a sudden you think, but I have time. I have time for work and I'm not busy, and I would like to be a little more busy than I actually am. Because guess what? We still have bills to pay.
Exactly. Pitching leads to work. Not pitching leads to not having work.
Not work.
I could not possibly say it any more simply than that. You got to be pitching. ABP, always be pitching. Even when you don't feel like it, even when you'd rather do something else, even when you're like, well, I have a full roster of clients. Why would I still pitch? Because eventually some of those full roster of clients, they're going to move on from the project. Maybe the people in the company change a little bit, or maybe you get sick of that client and you want to have another client to move on to. Always be pitching.
And that can include repitching too. So don't forget that. Yes. Number 2, you must hit your deadlines. And we've said this before, but it's worth repeating because I think sometimes we forget, like, life happened and I'm going to tell my client that I need an extra day or 2. Yes, life can happen. And is it the worst end of the world if you do that once or twice for something that truly was out of your control and you couldn't plan for?
I'm going to stop you on that. Once,
yes,
maybe,
exactly,
maybe. And I don't even
you got to
really
save that though for like,
And I don't even mean like once per client. I mean like once in your career, and that has to be truly emergency situation. And that's one of the, we talk about the fact that if you, as a copywriter, you should have a network of other copywriters so that if something happens and you are looking and you're going, I don't know if I can meet that deadline, you can reach out to one of your contacts and say, hey, can I give this to you? I need to okay it with the client, make sure they're okay with it, but I can't get to this. Can you do it? Yes. Okay, great. Then you talk to the client and say, I'm so sorry, this emergency has come up, but I've already secured another copywriter to do the work. Would you prefer work with them, or do you mind waiting for me to get to this? That is a perfectly reasonable, but you promised you would get work to someone by that deadline, and your reputation is on that. I will say that I have never missed a deadline, and I don't say that to be like, I've never done it. I mean, because deadlines are sacred. There's been times when I have made my schedule too tight, where I've taken on a little bit too much work. I've stayed up late. I have gotten up early in the morning. You got to get it done. You can't miss deadlines.
This is the other reason why we say to build in additional time. The deadline that you are delivering it to your client is not your internal deadline, because you want to be working on a project throughout whatever time you've budgeted for it. Even if it's a small project, you think, oh, I can knock that out in a day. Give yourself at least a few days so that if things come up, you can move things around. This is,
Mm-hmm.
the beauty of the career being so flexible is that you can build in that flexibility, but you need to do that for yourself. And you don't set yourself up for success if you say, I'm going to deliver it in the next 24 hours. And what if you get, sometimes you wake up and you're suddenly quite ill and you couldn't have planned for that.
Mm-hmm.
Or,
or you just have no creativity. You get up and you stare at your screen and you go,
right.
oh, I've got nothing.
Correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, or your child gets sick, or,
Mm-hmm.
maybe there's just something fun that you want to show up to. And instead of putting that aside, having to put that aside, if you've built time in, you can do the fun thing and get your work done. So,
Mm-hmm.
Use your weekends too, if you have to. And I know maybe people are like, oh my God, weekends, but maybe you're taking Thursday, Friday off or whatever.
Yeah.
Be flexible. Do what you need to do to get the work done, and be creative, and don't constrain yourself to 9 to 5 if you don't have to.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, and I will say too that the kind of, all right, once you get a one get out of jail free card, maybe that also has to be with a very long-term client, someone who knows you,
Yeah.
someone who trusts you, someone who knows that you are only saying this because it is an absolute true emergency. You can't do that with a new client, because a new client does not know you, does not know that this isn't your standard operating procedure to be like, yeah, I can get it to you by X date. And then as X date comes up going, ooh, I can't. Because that kind of copywriter, freelancer, service provider does not get repeat work.
Yeah. The other piece of advice too that I was just thinking of, because this has happened to me, friends, and I won't let it to happen to me again, is that I wait too long to dig into what a project needs. This is with recurring clients typically, where I'm like, oh yeah, they sent over a brief here. It's fine. I'm good to go. I'll just do this. And then I say, oh shoot, I'm looking at the brief and I have questions for them that they need to answer before I can start digging in on this work. So you want to do that as soon as possible. If a client like that, you're working with an ongoing client and they send you something, look at it right away. Just spend 15 minutes looking at whatever the project is so that you can shoot back questions and put the ball back in their court and get those answers. And then you can set an actually effective deadline versus setting a deadline and then realizing, oh shoot, this is going to crunch me because I don't have what they need. And I don't know if they can get me what I need in the time for the deadline that I've given them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. You have to protect your reputation. And maybe this is kind of an addendum to the last law. Is that even the right word? But you are only as good as your reputation. And it
I
used
thought
to
you were
be
going
the
to say
case.
your last project too, which
Well, I mean,
I would
that
say
too.
that, to be
Yeah.
honest. Yeah.
Yeah. It used to be the case before the internet was as big as it is, that it was a small creative community in each town. And that's certainly still true. But now with the internet, it is a small creative community around the world. You don't want to get a reputation for being someone who doesn't meet their deadlines, for someone who doesn't communicate with clients, for someone who goes missing after the project is kicked off. Any of these things, your reputation is crucial. You need to keep an absolutely, I was going to say sterling, but why do we go with sterling? Platinum. Is there anything?
White gold.
White gold, but isn't white gold more
I
expensive
don't
than platinum?
know.
I don't know. Titanium.
Whatever metal you want, whatever precious metal you want to be.
Whatever matters most to you. But it has to be absolutely pristine.
And that includes just being nice to work with, for lack of a better word, because people don't want to work with someone who is difficult to work with. And of course, you want to set your boundaries and to say, if I'm not answering email after 5, I'm not answering email after 5, or whatever it is. But the more flexible you can be with your clients while also maintaining your boundaries, the better, because no one wants to, you're providing them a service at the end of the day. They're not providing you a service. They've hired you. And so just remembering how that relationship works.
Absolutely. Next law. And it seems like it should be something that is obvious. And yet, I will tell you that throughout my career, and I know plenty of other copywriters for whom it's not quite obvious, if you don't invoice, if you don't send that invoice, you don't get paid. Like, well, I know, Nicki, obviously, yes. But are you behind on sending your invoices? Maybe also, yes. Are you behind right now, Kate? Do you have invoice
No,
you
I
need to
have
send?
an addendum, if you will, to this one too. Is that keep your direct deposit if you have that with clients up to date, because they can send an invoice through. You gotta wait. That's gonna get bounced if you closed out a bank account and didn't update
Oh.
your new bank account number. So just keep a running list of all of the things that are in direct deposit that are going to your bank. Just so if you ever have to move banks, close out your bank, you have a complete list of what you have to run down and switch to your new one before you
Mhm.
close out your old one. And yes, you should let your old bank account go for a month before you close it out. I did that, friends. I did, but I had a very outstanding invoice that I
Whoopsies.
forgot about
Whoopsie.
that will get bounced.
Yeah,
It's fine. I will get that money. It's not a significant amount of money, but yeah.
it's no. Yeah, it's if you are newer to copywriting, or maybe you've just had your first couple of clients and you're thinking like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to send out my invoice. It's going to be so exciting. And maybe you will stick with that. That might be the case. But many copywriters I know, there's this thing about like, yay, we get to cross it off the list. Once we finish a project and once we send it through and the client is like, yes, perfect, completely approved, we're like, all right, on to the next thing. And we forget slash drag our feet on actually sending out the invoice for the next project. I'm not quite sure. I have some speculation as to why this is, but it is rampant. So make it a part of your closing and wrapping up the project. You should be at the end of every project, you should be reaching out to ask for testimonial. At the end of every project, you should be reaching out and asking for if there's anybody else they know who needs a copywriter, asking for referrals. And at the end of every project, you should be sending through your invoice. So you get paid. We didn't get into this to do it for free. Get paid.
And if you're further along in your career, you might think, well, I'll hire a VA for that. And that could be a great thing. If you hate sending your invoices, then maybe it's a task you do, or you get a software like Dubsado that makes it maybe a little more streamlined for you to just shoot off that invoice.
Mm-hmm.
It still takes work, friends, though. So I feel like it's even with these things, you have to supply information to both Dubsado or your VA.
Mm-hmm.
So
Just do it.
yeah,
It takes like 5 minutes.
it's so
Just do it.
silly. It's so
Yeah,
silly.
it's so silly. Speaking of getting paid, who also has to get paid, Kate?
The government has to get paid. And we don't love that they do, but we do when our roads get repaired, when that
Roads
actually
repair,
happens. Yep.
schools. We love schools.
We do love
Yes.
schools. Schools are very important. I'm a public school beneficiary.
Beneficiary.
Yep.
And that's what
Wow.
public school got her. Just
Yep.
kidding. Just kidding. Me too. Public school until high school. Yes.
Speaking of direct deposit, update your beneficiaries too in your banking while you're at
great
it.
point. Great point.
But yes, the government needs to get paid. So you need to set aside money for taxes. I know people freak out about this. It's so easy. And I'm sure we have episodes on building in your own benefits and all the sort of stuff that if you're like, oh, I really want to freelance, but I don't want to have to do that. I promise you, friends. Again, if the girl who went to public school that said beneficiado, whatever word I just tried to say, can do taxes, you got it, friends. You got this.
I also went to public school. It was an excellent public school education. Thank you, Wisconsin Public Schools.
There you go.
But yeah, it's not difficult. Every invoice that comes in, every payment that comes in, invoices go out, payments come in, put a certain percentage in a separate account, and you just don't touch it until it's time to pay some taxes. Just take out a percentage, put it right over there, and you don't touch it. Because then at the end of the tax period, when it's time to send in those payments, guess what? You have this whole big chunk you don't have to worry about, and you just send a check or make a transfer out of that account. But you have to set that aside, because I know I don't know of any of our students that have done this, but I know other freelancers, contacts who have gotten a big old slap from the tax man at the end of the year because they got the payments in, they spent all the money, and then when the tax season came around, they had to find like tens of thousands of dollars from somewhere because they hadn't set that money aside. So
which good news is they owed tens of thousands of dollars because they were making great money. So good for them.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
There are solutions.
Set it aside.
Yeah. It's a little more painful when you don't set it aside. And we will link to the blog post that talks about setting money aside, but also how you can do that super easily. For your quarterly taxes. Yeah. Next rule, law, rule, whatever you want to call it. keep your portfolio set up to date. This is a great one for me to introduce because, man, did it take me a while to update mine. And honestly, it took you a while to update yours, but yours is lovely now. So I guess it's a common trait among copywriters. Once we have work coming in, it's very easy to neglect our portfolios and say, I don't need it. You want to do it as you go along. It's so much easier doing it as you go along and adding pieces. Like, you don't have to add every single piece that you do, but the real good ones that you're proud of, add that in. And maybe you take one down or put it into draft mode on your portfolio that you don't want up there anymore. Or maybe you keep them all. But it's so much easier one by one versus now I have to carve out time to really do a complete overhaul. Well, you just did it. So you speak to the complete overhaul.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I did it, but also I know so many creatives who go, "Ooh, I really want to pitch this company, but oh, my portfolio is not up to date," or "Ooh, I really want to apply for this job, but oh, my portfolio is not." I know creatives who are in jobs that they want to leave, but they can't apply for new work because they have not set aside time to update their portfolios, because now it's been so long since they've done it. They're like, it's going to take me an entire weekend to do this. To find the pieces and put everything together, and don't let yourself get to that place. At least once a quarter, update just block out
put
some
it on
time.
Your calendar.
Exactly. Block out some time, Friday afternoon or whatever, and just keep your portfolio updated.
Yeah. And that's the other thing I know we talked about at the end of every project. At the end of every project, grab screenshots of the work that you completed. So even if you don't want to use it, like, having the backlog of having all of that work is so, so important. Put it in your Dropbox, Google Drive, whatever cloud solution that you use, so that you have it there. Very occasionally I have clients, "Oh, but have you done this?" And I can dig through my work. It's all labeled by the medium, the client, et cetera. And so I can find pieces that if they want something very, very specific that's not happens to not be on my portfolio, I can do that. So grab your pieces.
Absolutely. Okay.
I'm excited about this next one.
Are you? Oh,
yes.
Well, go ahead and introduce it then.
Well, introduce it, and then I'll toss it right back to you. But things that seem easy aren't. And as Nicki very wisely said, and we're going to talk about both, things that seem hard also aren't. So how can that be that easy things aren't easy and hard things aren't hard?
Sounds like what's
a riddle.
For? Yes, a riddle. Thank you. So I think there's so many things. There are a lot of, in our industry, maybe just in everybody's industry, there are a lot of people out there that are trying to sell you on easy things, right? Sell you on the easy button, and I think the prime example for copywriters is these job bidding sites like Upwork, like Fiverr, those kind of things. It's like, okay, yeah, great. Just get on the site, and they're posting so many jobs, and all you have to do is just apply for these jobs. You're going to land so many jobs. All you have to do is just sit home and write all day long, and it's going to be great. You're going to love it. That is absolutely not how it works.
I wish that's how it worked.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah. But if it were that easy, then everybody would be doing it. And part of the problem is that everybody is doing it, but often the people that you are competing with are willing to take much, much lower rates. The biggest part of one of the biggest issues, and we have a whole episode, so I'm not going to go too deeply, but you have to compete for work that you have not gotten yet. So you have to send in a proposal, and it has to be a good proposal, but also because there are multiple other copywriters also sending in proposals, you have to keep your rate lower than your standard rate would be, because people post on that site looking for the best they can get for the cheapest that they can get. And that's not the place that you want to be. You don't want to be competing for work. You want to be the one person pitching for any number of opportunities. You don't need to compete. You're going to end up, even if you get the work, best case scenario, you get the work and you're working for way less than you should be. Worst case scenario, which is so much more common, frankly, is that you submit your proposal for projects and you spend all this time submitting proposals for work that you don't even get. It's very frustrating. It's so unnecessary. It's quote unquote easy, but it doesn't actually work.
Yeah. If it seems
not the way they say it does.
Yeah. And if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. It just, on the other side of things, though, the hard things aren't. And what we mean by that is, I think we're very good at getting in our own heads, throwing up our own roadblocks and thinking, well, first and foremost, like, that copywriting's hard. I don't want to be a jerk, but there's nothing special about any of us as copywriters. There's nothing. We're great humans. You're a very special person, Nikki. I'm a very special person in many ways. But the fact that we're copywriters is very not special. We followed steps, we took action, and we got there. I think when people say, oh, copywriting's hard to get into, it's because they haven't taken the steps. It's not actually hard. It's hard if you say, I want to do this, and then you wait 5 years to do it, and then you say, I still want to do it, and then start taking the action. It's still not hard. It's just you spent time worrying about things that you didn't need to worry about.
Yeah. Well, and I have a real problem with the word hard, frankly, because there's so many things that we label hard that objectively are not hard. They might be uncomfortable. We might not want to do them. Maybe they're kicking up some self-doubt. Maybe they are outside of our comfort zone, but that doesn't mean that they're hard. And as soon as we label something as hard, like pitching is hard. First of all, pitching is not hard. Pitching is writing an email and sending an email. There's nothing about that is hard. I mean, objectively, guys, even if you were thinking, oh, I'm kind of nervous about it, objectively, it is not hard. Lifting a car off of a person, I don't know why that's where I went, but that's hard, right? Lifting a car
also very scary.
Is hard and very scary.
For the person under the car, that is.
Yes, that is true. But for both, I would say. But objectively, that is hard. But writing and sending an email is not hard. You might find it a little challenging at first because
you might overthink it a lot. Which
overthink it.
I think overthinking is what we think is hard, but really we're just spending way too much time in our heads versus saying, "Oh, I wrote an email. Let me hit send."
Or it's uncomfortable. Like, oh, I haven't done this yet, so I'm a little bit nervous about it. There's a big difference between something being a little bit nervous about it and something being hard. But as soon as you label something as hard, your brain goes, oh, this is hard. And every time you try to do it, that's what your brain kicks up again. Oh, this is that thing that we have to do that is hard. So be really, really careful about labeling things as hard, because at least unless you're lifting cars, as you're building your copywriting career, there is nothing that is truly hard. Learning can be a little challenging. There's be some parts of copywriting that you instantly get, and some parts that maybe you have to learn, that you have to work at a little bit more.
That's everything, right? You do a lot of projects and you get there. You shoot a basketball a lot and you get better at it. Are you ever going to be perfect at any of these things? No. That's why I like how doctors call it a practice. I like how yoga people call it a practice, because nothing is actually you're practicing it. There's no right and wrong per se.
You get better and you learn to do things that are uncomfortable, but there's nothing about it that's hard. If something is only hard because you are labeling it as hard, and I am 100% positive that you are mislabeling it.
Yeah. Which leads nicely into our last unbreakable law, which a lot of people label as hard, I would say. Having to talk about yourself, telling people you're a copywriter, telling people why you're a better copywriter than other copywriters when you do your USPs.
Or at least
CCA
different.
No? Yes, I should say that. Yes. Yeah. What makes you more unique, your unique selling point? What about you is going to be different than working with a different copywriter if a client chose to move forward? It can be uncomfortable to tell people you're a copywriter. It can be uncomfortable to tell people that you're taking on new clients, especially, I'm thinking of posting on LinkedIn and letting people know, or updating your LinkedIn profile to let people know you're doing copywriting work, or whatever it is. But you have to do it at some point.
Yeah. The law is that you have to market yourself, and you have to do it with the same strategic mindset and the same carefulness that you would put together copy for a client, right? If a client said, oh, I need to update my website and I need to update my LinkedIn profile and I need to, how would you approach that? Well, you probably you would put together a creative brief. You'd sit down with the client, talk about objectives, talk about what they're trying to do. We'll talk about how are we measuring success? You have to do the same thing with yourself. You have to treat yourself like the business that you are. Exactly. Yeah. Treat yourself like the client, and think in terms of, okay, if someone gets to my website, and our students know this, we have our website reviews on the coaching calls every time we have a coaching call. how does this website, it's not just, I'm just going to put up a website about me. No, it's not about you. It's about what you can do for your client. And you have to talk to the target audience. And it's the same thing when you are putting together your website, when you're updating your LinkedIn profile, when you are posting on LinkedIn, when you're posting on, if you have social media just for you as a professional, you have to think in terms of your target audience, and you have to think in terms of how you market yourself just the way you would think about a client.
Yeah, and each of these things we're talking about, posting on LinkedIn, creating your portfolio, and frankly, each page of your portfolio is its own project. And so you would never jump into a client project starting to write the copy without first doing your creative brief. So for anything you're doing for yourself, write a creative brief. Really think about, what is my voice? It's the one time we get to write in our own voice and not our client's voice. So what do I want to sound like? What is the goal of this project? What is the action I want the person to take if they're reading my LinkedIn post, or they're reading my LinkedIn profile, or if they're on my website, they're on my homepage, or they're on my about page? What is the action I want them to take? Go through all of that so that you put your best foot forward with your writing, and it's the most effective thing that it can be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay. So those are the laws. And I won't even say break them at your own risk. Just don't break them.
Don't.
They're so easy to stay. It's so easy to stay legal, friends. But at the same time,
I like that. Stay legal, friends.
Stay legal, friends. New tagline?
Yeah.
Probably not. Okay. So those are the rules, the laws, and it's so easy to stay legal, stay within the bounds. But it all, as usual, comes back to taking yourself seriously as a business owner, taking yourself seriously as a professional. You don't have to be doing this full time to take yourself seriously. You can be doing this just a couple hours a week and still take yourself and your clients and your work seriously. And that is, success is going to come from that. So with that, we will catch you guys in the next episode. Bye, everybody. Like what you heard? Hit subscribe so you never miss a video. And if you're ready to take the first step toward becoming a copywriter yourself, sign up for a free video training right here.